It was just another winter night along Britain's east coast, coal glowing in the grate. A cup of tea going cold on the arm of the chair, nothing to worry about. But far out in the North Sea, something was building, a storm so powerful it would claim over 300 British lives before morning, swallow entire towns under freezing black water, and become the deadliest natural disaster Britain would see in the entire 20th century, the night of January the 31st, 1953. The sea came for everything, and you had no warning it was coming. Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy these stories of what Britain lived through, go ahead and subscribe. Drop a comment if you remember that night, or if someone in your family does. Those memories matter more than you know. Now, back to the story. 1953. Britain was still rebuilding. The war had been over for 8 years, but the scars were everywhere. Rationing on meat and sugar was only just ending. Prefabricated homes put up after the Blitz as temporary housing still had families living in them. The coronation was coming in June. The country was looking forward to it for the first time in years. Not looking out to sea, along the East Coast that Saturday, the pubs were full. Chip shops were busy. Families gathered round the wireless listening to the light program. You had your tea, maybe went down the local for a pint, came home and settled in for the night. The wind was blowing hard, but wind blew hard every January. It meant nothing. The Meteorological Office had issued warnings on Friday, the 30th. A severe system was developing over the North Sea. Deep, low pressure, winds building, spring tides on the way. But there was no national flood warning system, no way to pass that information to ordinary people sitting in their living rooms. The warnings stayed inside government offices, most of them closed for the weekend. Up in Scotland, the wind hit first. Gusts reached 126 miles per hour at Costa Hill in the Orkney Islands, the highest wind speed ever recorded in Britain. Trees snapped clean in half. Roofs ripped off houses. Power lines came down across the Highlands. The storm had announced itself with fury, but down the East Coast you heard nothing about it. You went to bed as normal, and the worst was still hours away. That Saturday morning, the MV Princess Victoria had left Stranraer for Larne in Northern Ireland, a car ferry, one of the earliest roll-on roll-off vessels in British waters. Her captain was James Ferguson. 17 years on the same route. A gale warning was in force, but Ferguson made the decision to sail. The ship left port at 7:45 in the morning with 128 passengers and 51 crew aboard. Within an hour of clearing the shelter of Loch Ryan, the storm hit with full force. 30-foot waves smashing into the stern. The rear doors buckled under the impact. Water poured onto the car deck. The ship began to list. By 10:30 that morning, the radio operator sent an SOS. The Princess Victoria was flooding and drifting helplessly down the North Channel. Lifeboats launched from Port Patrick and Donaghadee. A destroyer set out from the Clyde. But the weather was so violent, so blinding with sleet and snow, that rescue vessels could not find her. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the engines stopped. The order came to abandon ship. Just before 2 o'clock, the Princess Victoria rolled onto her side and went down. 133 passengers and crew died. Only 44 survived. The inquiry held weeks later at Crumlin Road Courthouse in Belfast concluded that the stern doors were not strong enough. The report's final lines said it plainly. If Princess Victoria had been as staunch as those who manned her, then all would have been well and the disaster averted. The men who sailed her did everything right. The ship let them down. And while that ferry was sinking off the Irish coast, the surge was building in the North Sea. Hurricanes forced northwesterly winds pushing billions of tons of water south. Spring tides adding height. Low pressure pulling the sea level higher still. The water rose to over 18 feet above normal levels in places. A wall of water, miles wide, racing down toward the narrowing funnel of the southern North Sea, moving faster than anyone could outrun, and heading straight for the most vulnerable stretch of coast in Britain, The surge hit Spurnehead in Yorkshire at 4 in the afternoon on Saturday. Then it raced south. Lincolnshire, Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex. Each county struck in turn as the night wore on, and you, asleep in your bed along the east coast, knew nothing. Television was rare in 1953. Most radio stations had already signed off for the night. The BBC Midnight News Bulletin included one line about an exceptionally high tide expected in the rivers Thames and Medway. That was it. Telephone lines were about to be ripped apart by the very storm they needed to warn you about. The warnings never reached you. You were on your own. Lincolnshire was hit first. Around 7 that Saturday evening, waves over 6 meters high crashed through the flood defences between Mablethorpe and Skegness. Water surged 3 kilometres inland across the flat fenland. 16 people died. The press called it the Lincolnshire Dunkirk. The army moved in within hours. Police officers Charles Lewis and Leonard Deptford worked through the night pulling people from the water. Lewis jumped from a police station upper window to save an elderly couple being swept away